And I will treat that from an alchemical point of view. Let's see if still people will arrive. I see faces I already know. Please, I would be delighted if you turn on your video so I have the sensation to speak to someone alive. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Welcome. Welcome to everyone. For those who don't know me, this is Gura. My name is Gura Loto, and she's the wonderful woman speaking in the green. And I'm living in Damanhur since quite a while. And my passion and specialization is alchemy. So if you would like to write in the chat from where you're from, so I can see a bit where you come from, because I see also a lot of Italians, which I'm delighted to see. And Grüezi nach Luzern. And I see also a lot of new names, Siskura. I don't know whether you followed us already. Pisa, wonderful. Gura says, I don't know whether you followed us in the other webinars. So from Gianluca is from Mantua, Italy, from Poland, Anna, and Gura says, I'm reading. So so the topic of tonight is very important. So the first part, says Gura, I just informed the Italians to choose the Italian channel so that everyone can hear me well. And Gura says, tonight I will speak about the feminine principle, which is contained in every one of us, and it goes much beyond our physical form of masculine and feminine. And I will connect it to this historical epoch, which we call the Age of Aquarius, and also the second part of life. I wanted to unite these elements because they are corresponding also to my period of my life. So I went through, oh, I'm still going through this phase, she says. And I like the idea of sharing a bit my experience and what I'm living, and also see this from a magical and chemical point of view. So, uh, Perugia, Torino, Varese, Canada. So we have a very international audience, which is great. And Cora will speak in Italian, and I am her English voice. If there are any technical things, you can write me in the chat, because I have the chat open so I can see whether I speak too loud, too low, too whatever. So I give you still a moment. Also, then, and I hope that you have a lot of questions and curiosities, and I'm looking forward of some sharing among us. And then we will also conclude with a little practical, let's say, guided meditation, which I will guide. which I will lead, says Guna, and then you will experiment the feminine principle and its characteristics. So, what does it mean, the second half of your life? It's an important period, of course, of a man and as a woman, independently from their sex, because it's a time of maturation, inner maturation, a research of yourself, evaluation of your own experience, the experiences you gained. It's like a bit making a point, like summarizing. So I realized when I turned 40, like after my 40s, I recognized that I'm like at halftime of my life, more or less. Uh, so I recognized that I lived a big part of my life. So this getting closer to a passage, the dead, when you feel that you're getting closer. So I was asking myself, what in my existence, what did I realize? Did I realize the things I chose? Did I do things I like? Do I want to do more? So all these questions came up, and I think it's natural that they can come up in this second period of your life, to say so. And the research of yourself, says Gura, it becomes a central point, like looking out for yourself and knowing yourself, your own talents, to to put them also into realization and to offer them to the others. So the feminine principle is a principle which is archetypical, so it has a quality of your soul, which obviously is not feminine nor masculine, but it's a union, the union of these fundamental principles, this feminine and masculine principle inside of every single one of us. And in this epoch, in this, so not only I'm referring to this second part of life, but this epoch in generally where we find ourselves in right now, the area of Aquarius, is the rebirth and consideration of the feminine is very, very important, because we came from the era, the eon of the pieces, which was a lot guided from the masculine part, from the competition, rationality, science, from like a logical logic. Huh? Instead, the epoch of Aquarius is an epoch where time becomes fluid, which means that it offers a lot of possibilities of reawakening, of rebirth, of reinterpretation, of um, evaluation of our styles, of our lifestyles. So it's an epoch where in one part everything is accelerated on one hand, where the instability grows bigger and bigger, but on the other hand, new potentials come up, new ideas, new flows. So it's very, very important to let the feminine characteristics come up to balance an epoch which was very much guided from the masculine part, and the feminine is a lot concentrated on the qualities which are connected to the intuition, to the integration, to the profound listening, to the receptiveness, to being a container container of ancient knowledge, which is creative, more silence powers, but connected to Earth and the cosmos. So in our industrial society, these characteristics are not so present in our lives. So we lost a bit the contact to it, women and men, because the society brings us to live a very mechanical life, very much connected to the survival aspect, very much to the mechanicity, less to the consciousness. So in this epoch of Aquarius, uh, in our vision, in our Damanhurian vision, but also in a lot of different other esoteric traditions, the feminine principle from an spiritual alchemical point of view turns back to become the center, being in the center of a topic. So to acquire this characteristics, this new awakening, whether in a male or in a female body, is connected to the reawakening of the soul, of managing to re-identify with the more profound essence, which goes beyond the body, which goes beyond all the parts we are made of. And this could bring, from one point of view, either from a male or female side, a reconnection. And as alchemy is teaching us in this epoch of Aquarius, alchemy is connected to what we call the living forces. Living forces are all these forces connected to emotions, to characteristics, to states of consciousness of the human being, in connection with forces and energies which are generated by other living beings like nature, the plants, animals. So the feminine has this predisposition to the union, to the unconditional love as a principle, as an archetypical principle, to the difference to other epochs, and this is valid for men and women who want to reconnect to its own feminine principle in their inside, like those who are wanting and choosing to take up a pathway of reawakening, is called to take care of yourself. Like masters, there are very few on this planet, on this earth, but not by chance it's like that, because this moment is corresponding to the epoch where a reawakening has to happen collectively, where every single one has to take responsibility for him or herself, and with a consciousness which rises, which is growing, taking care of its own internal power. So the true transformation is asking to operate according your own consciousness and knowledge. So in this epoch of a lot of changes and instability which come at a high speed, which is very elevated though. So from a feminine point of view as a principle, to embrace these changes and the transformation of them as opportunities is a characteristic which is very, very useful. So let's see it in a creative, positive way, all what's happening. And let's use it as a opportunity and not as a block, as a hindrance. So it's very much connected to intuition, which has these characteristics connected to the feminine principle, to the brotherhood, sisterhood, the capacity to unify instead of dividing, the creation of a family, a tribe, community, which goes beyond than your blood family, and uh, find lost knowledge. So a lot of them are kept inside the feminine womb. The feminine principle is connected to water. Water, as a lot of you know, is a fundamental element in alchemy because it's used to preserve memories, to preserve information. So in alchemy, the feminine is not corresponding to a biological category, so a physical one, not to the gender of a person, to the sex of a person, but it's this original principle which is present in every one of us and directed to the creation, to transformation. And it's learning to contain this process as well. It's not something simple to get back to this approach, and also for us women to reawaken this part inside of you. Because in this society, in a society where there's a lot of competition, which we went, I mean, which was for millennia, uh, and was accelerated a lot in the last centuries. So a society which is extremely guided by the masculine of competition and so on. So women had to adapt and had to acquire masculine characteristics to navigate all that. But we have predispositions, not only physical, but also spiritual and different, and to manage to recognize the feminine as a universal principle inside of every single one of us, male and female, is transcending the roles but also the conditionings. So it's a recall for the reawakening for all men and women, but to honor this principle, the feminine could also manage to heal the inner splitting which we created. Let's say often from men or women, we think that the other person, with the one we have a relationship, is a part which is compensating us, which is completing us. In reality, everyone is a potential complete being if you would manage to access these two principles inside of you and to use them in a balanced way. The feminine is very much connected to the lunar principle. And it has this cycle, the cycle of the moon, and has a big capacity of loosening to make something fluid, something which is rigid, to modulate what doesn't have a form. And it's the intuition connected to Mercury. Mercury is a principle, besides it's also a planet, which is a lot connected with a cycle of life which goes from 35 to 49 years, connected to the tarot card of the magician. So the completing expression, maximum expression of its potential. And it's a real passage in alchemy. In alchemy, the different ages are passages, not only physiological ones, where the cells of the body and all the cells of the body are renewed completely, but these passages are like marked by the age range or this phase of age, where from every 7 years till you're 21, so from 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21, our body is renewed completely from a physical point of view. But it's also energetical passages there, and passages which of a possible potential. So it's like portals. And then from 21 years on, the passages, like the periods, grow longer. So the phase, which before was 7 years, is then turning into a cycle of 14 years. So every 14 years, we are totally renewed. So this cycle of age, so from 35 to 49 years, is signing or marking a big passage, because we are in a point. So it's starting where you come to an age. Guru is looking for words. So you have already a life experience, so you put yourself some questions, but it's also an important passage, which is very receptive and has forces which are connected to the feminine, so visible, sorry. It's an opening to the divine. And the intuition is a language which speaks to the deepest part of us, and also to different dimensions, not only physical ones. And the relationship in this period, and I'm intending the relationship, so the relationships we would have with another person, but not only with people, but also with other beings. So this exchange is fundamental to mirror yourself to understand more consciously who we are, what we realized, and our gifts as well, and offered, or which we still have to offer. And the feminine is very much connected to healing of the heart. The epoch of pieces was focalized a lot on the mind, the rationality of the use of the mind, And now it's time to manage to reconnect the mind and heart to reacquire more profound connection with the soul. So these potentials, these passages, these energetical passages and these potentials in the different phases of our age are happening naturally. But the expression of the potential, so I wanna remind you, it's a choice. It's not happening naturally because it means giving your own existence a direction through the choices, more and more conscious, to construct something, to construct this reconnection and to reawaken these parts. Our soul, which in Damanhur we define as a principle of absolute intelligence, it doesn't have any gender, any sex, but it has a complexity, and that's one of the hypotheses of the Damanhurian hypothesis we make, but which is also found in other ancient traditions. So it's made of a complexity, our soul, which is closing in not only the experience of one of existence, but is holding experiences done also in other times and spaces where we express part, more feminine, more masculine parts of ourselves, or where we lived in female or in masculine bodies. So the soul is a very, very complex structure. So all these parts are parts which in every existence we are recalled to know them and to integrate them. So it's a very feminine principle, like integrate through love. Love is this force which is connecting to the unconditional love, of course, something connecting us to these divine characteristics. And thanks to this embracing of all these parts which are part of this soul, this principle, which is very complex, our soul, we have to integrate and unify, lovingly fuse all them together. So here we really speak of a real transmutation, to have a really passage which makes us reborn in a new level. So this transmutation is happening a lot in communication with forces, not only physical, like inner ones, so this masculine and feminine principle, but also with forces which are outside of us, which are more subtle, and extending through choice, knowledge, awareness. So we are extending networks of connections which go beyond the physical plane. And this is a principle which is unifying, with the synthesizing. As if we would activate the feminine part in every single one of us in this age of Aquarius. It's like we have a reactor inside of us reacting something and which is creating evolution, whether in a male or in a female body. So we can speak about the spiritual aspect. We can speak about, again, of the living, of the reconnection to the goddess as a symbol, this big mother, this living force which connects, which is pervading the collectiveness. And this is very much in line with what should happen in the age of Aquarius. So the reawakening of a collective consciousness, not on an individual level as it happened in past times. So this feminine principle should emerge to heal of these many things we went through. So to heal the separation, after all, and overall, and to learn and to collaborate, to co-create instead of dominating, creating structures which are based not only on the pyramidal form, but on the circle, like based on the form of a circle, not on the pyramid. And to emanate, to express more empathy instead of control. And the fundamental part is it should guide us to the reactivation and have an active role there. This feminine principle is a polarity which is associated to the more passive part in a human being, which is balancing and which is connected to the masculine part. So in this epoch, the feminine should be the one transforming. As if we would say, the feminine lived a lot of passivity in these epochs. And I think it was evident to everyone. And now in this age of Aquarius, we need an action to be more active, less silent, and therefore like bringing a new culture, a new vision, being protagonist, to be also a facilitator, but like an express facilitation of this process of healing. So, and here we're speaking about concentrating on parts of our society which don't work and which don't like give life to this characteristics, to this principle. And I think it's useless to do that. So that's why this activating the feminine principle is so important and plays this important role, because to create a new model and also in the society to become, especially in this second part of your life, like in this second part of existence, to become more spiritual authority, feminine as an spiritual authority. And it's a real passage of power. It's a real threshold you have to go over. So the phase of the age between 35 and 49 years is this period of the internal alchemist, the magician, as we call it, is representing the passage from the operation of the white, where you purify, where you elevate parts of yourself, on the work on yourself and the knowledge of yourself. And then you prepare to the red phase, to the manifestation, to this maximum expression of your own talents, of your gifts, like the offering of yourself and the capacities to the others. It's a super important process. And as a lot of you know, others maybe don't know yet, in alchemy, we focalize very much on the knowledge of the choice, giving it energetical direction also to the things we choose, to the forces in which we get into contact inside of us and outside of us. And a lot to become more and more aware of what is like working mechanically, automatically inside of us, and what is this part we choose consciously, in the meaning of thoughts, emotions, actions. So it's important to ask yourself, who am I? But also, what do you want to do? What's the profound sense of my pathway? What's the profound sense of the reawakening of these feminine parts in every single one of us? Whether it's in a, like in the masculine gender or the feminine. And then you heal the wounds. The spiritual maturity which you can acquire in this phase of life is to accept all the experiences, to accept and transforming them into in passages. They become a force. It's like turning into a medicine, a vision, an integration to acquire a vision of the existence which is wider. So everything which we experiment, which we live, which we go through, and which turns into experience, is not by chance happening. So it's not happening by chance, all that. And from the experiences we gained, we have to distill the essence, this part which makes us understand the why, but also this part which makes us understand and connect that we made a process to unify these points of experiences to make us understand that the process is not only happening, but started with these synchronic experiences which we already gained. So we only have to be more aware of that. And there we abandoned in this epoch, so in this second part of our life, we start to abandon what we think is superficial, what we don't think is essential anymore, huh? To follow this pathway. Everything which is turned into a habit, I know that it can evoke fear and conditionings, or but we have to reconsider everything, like on this new level of the spiral. You know, the spiral was going up. So here in the physical dimension, we don't have an eternal time. Huh? So the time in our body we have has a limited duration. So it's our existence, for those who believe in reincarnation, can experiment the physical dimension more and more often, but the perception is always very linear. Because our lifespan is determined, it has a certain period, huh? So the more we manage to live a spiritual pathway and understand the preciousness of our existence, and a path which we're aware of, the more we enter in a time which is not more linear and which goes beyond our physical life. I'm sorry. So all the processes we find, or all the transformation processes we live through, happen thanks to the production of substances in our body. So all our thoughts, everything is fruit of a chemical and alchemical process in the body, and managing to get closer to the intelligence of the body and to go from your mind, like to which we did and we still do, we're totally connected to our mind, but using the intelligence which is extended in our whole body, and I'm not meaning only physical but also energetically, is part of this process, which is very, very feminine, which is very much part of this feminine principle. And you be become a channel of transmission, and to irradiate in this phase where we're not only generating life, so and through the for women in the menopause, where we don't have the physical ability to generate life anymore, but on a chemical level we can use this generating principle, and this transforms into transmission of life, in like meaning being, uh, dilate and incarnate this principle and irradiate it consciously. So that's the generating part, which is transforming. The body is muting, obvious in a mature woman, of course, is different, and as your own energy, and the energy becomes more powerful on a different level, and a cycle is closed and a new cycle is opening, and in a different dimension, which is not only physical. So it's something, and it's an opening to worlds, multidimensional. And it becomes easier to open up to dreams, to spiritual projects, to a connection, a communication among species. The masculine and the feminine, these two principles, form an equilibrium which we call the androgen, the complete being. And in alchemy, this is the goal. Like the alchemical goal is to unify these two polarities inside of every living being, so that it turns into a process of internal completion. The androgen is not feminine nor masculine, but it has both of this structure, and we call it and define it as a lost archetype, which is representing the union of the opposites, the expression of a balanced knowledge. And it is a state which we should go to, like we should tend to. So to a reality which has a major profoundness. We are made of a lot of different forces inside of us. And as I said before, the individual has such a complex mix of inner forces, energies, components, physical, non-physical, physical and subtle ones. So every one of us is a puzzle, a complex puzzle, which in every life we express in a different way. So in every existence we can express more feminine or more masculine parts of ourselves. But the true balance in is to know and to harmonize all these inner tendencies, to avoiding excesses too much, because they don't respond to an equilibrium. So the axis is not responding to this balance, the state of spiritual consciousness, which is then complete. If you have questions, Iskura, don't hold them back. Feel free to ask us. I ask you not to write in the chat because it's a little difficult to what reading and speaking at the same time. So just raise your hands. There is a function of raising your hands. So, Cilia, hola. Tell us. She says, I have a curiosity. A big, when I get really, really, really angry at the level of forces, where do they go to when I'm really enraged? What's happening inside of us when I'm really in a rage state? But Gura says, can you be more specific in your question, please? So you are asking me the feminine principle? No, no, no. She says, no, in general, because it may happened for me years ago. I was totally, I was really, really, really angry. And I went through a whole week and it happened to me. I almost turned into a male. So, and I wanted to know whether this was a normal reaction or which is happening. But I was really, really, really angry, she says. So, do you know, like in a comics, when you see all these things around, like, so in Italian, it says seven blitz. So, this physical state for me went for several states, and even on a level, on a sexual level, I was surprised because I'm more laid back there. Also sexually, I'm quite, but there I was totally different, and this curiosity remained in me, whether what's happening? Well, what happened technically if you manage to explain that to me? So Buddha says, well, that's not really simple to answer your question. The chakras are energetical centers, but they're all connected one with the other. The energetical flows, which are flowing, uh, the feminine and masculine flowing in our chakras have different directions. So these states of consciousness, which are also these peaks, huh? Which happen to every one of us, like it's this often uncontrollable emotions which we don't guide, huh? And which have a lot of intensity and also have a long duration. So it's expression of unbalance, of an inner energetical unbalance among the masculine and feminine principle, but also of this unalignment of these different chakras. The chakras as everything is interconnected. So it's like an orchestra which has to sound, play in harmony. So while we open here the chapter of all the parts we're made of, because obviously we don't have only masculine and feminine parts. We're made of elements, we are of energetical flows, we are made of energetical centers. We're speaking of our energetical structure of meridians, of subtle bodies. So the complexity of how we are made is big, is huge. So these emotional peaks are always a result of an unbalanced psychical and physical, and it's focalized on the living forces, which are emotional states of consciousness, which every one of us should learn to guide them. So it's not to be dominated by them, huh? But to be able to guide them consciously. It's not simple because it really takes a lot. And one of the techniques which are more efficient, therefore, Gura says, which I found, at least she says, to, let's put it this way, to see more clearly in these peaks of my characteristics is to observe myself, what we call self-observation. We often are very connected to the outside, to what's happening outside of us, and we don't recognize to observe what is happening inside of us while we going through stuff. And observing ourselves and self-observing ourselves is a technique which one brings you to the present moment, here and now. Because if you manage in the moment when you live this thing, and you say, okay, wait, I observe this thing, I observe myself, and see what's happening to me. And that's already a position where you're not involved anymore because it's outside. If you look at yourself, you are like having a testimony of what's happening inside of you, and you manage to bring yourself also to the presence and your body and to guide better what you're going through. So over time, doing this practice, these peaks, this intensity, and the duration of it, of these states of consciousness out of control, are reduced then. But if you're not able to observe yourselves while they're happening, you will repeat these mechanisms all over because it's then a mechanical thing, because the mind will present them just to you, as the mind tends always to repeat the same schemes of what is already knowing. these states of consciousness and emotion are producing also chemical substances in the body, and the body is registering these substances, and the body becomes dependent on them. Even if you would like to act in a different way, but you don't manage, is because you are not only in this loop of repetition of the same mental schemes, but also you're dependent, well, you're in this state that your body is kind of dependent of the substances and is not used to act differently. Not your mind, not your body. So to exit of this state means that you have an awareness, and this is only from the outside you can do for yourself, which usually we don't do. So it seems a banal action. It's very difficult to do so. So I invite you to do that. It's difficult to remember it when you're in such a state, yeah? When you are in an extreme state or in an excess state, to remember that. That's really hard. But then when you manage to do that and to observe yourself without any judgment of yourself, of what's happening, it's super, super difficult to not judge in this moment. Because all these excesses, everything which is too much, these emotions which we don't manage to guide consciously, are expressions of inner unbalances. Always. So anyway, the use of the chakras, doing practices and doing the work of the knowledge of yourselves and activate parts can be done from a lot of point of views, from the body and your own characteristics, for those who start from the physical part, those who start from thoughts, those who start from energetical part. So techniques, alchemy is offering a lot, ritual ones. And then everyone is choosing on the base of its own characteristics, which you use. And you have to also test which is more efficient for you, but the results should be should show. Christina. So she's greeting everyone. I would like to ask you if I feel happy and everything's going well, but I don't have any sexual like feeling, not even, not even towards myself. I'm 36 years old, Shizgura. So it's a very difficult question because I don't know you, because the elements can be um, a lot, a lot. The elements which can happen or bring you to this result can be a lot, the reasons. I think it's important to start to think that we have a lot of different levels which we can access to. So the fact of being happy and balanced can be one level. It's not said that it's the more profound level of yourself. Spiritually, alchemically speaking, the reality, what we perceive, is a very limited reality perceived with the physical senses, which maybe only 2 or 3% of the reality is part only 2 or 3% of the reality we're immersed inside. And consider that every one of us is born conditioned, because who knows whether the thoughts you have are really yours, like these believings in what you believe in, if they are yours, if they come from your profound parts, or if it is ones you acquire through your family, in the society you grew up, the education received. So you would have to see and make a process to go to the deeper levels of yourself, but also on the level, the to this also to how you perceive reality. And here the feminine principle which I was describing comes really into play, you know, this this big game we are playing here from an alchemical point of view is the one of managing to incarnate more divine characteristics into matter. And I don't know whether you are part of a spiritual pathway which made you to mm, yes, she says yes. After that, I had this change. Well, Gura says it could be also a period which then passes. A lot of phases we go through. There are a lot of phases we go through, and of multiple dimensions we're made of. There are a lot of characteristics which come up, and also new ones. Maybe you don't even know you have them, and you didn't even think you have them. So there are phases which, according to me, or I think, can be they can be like a state before new balances, new equilibriums. It's like before the next round of the spiral. I, for example, for those who know me, I made a pathway of um, monkship. So where no sexual relations have been foreseen, and the passage from having a life before my previous life was very, also from a sexual point of view, what I expressed myself. Then I went to the opposite, like a pathway for many years where you contain these sexual energies, not expressing them through sexuality, but channeling these in different ways. And it was very long. And then afterwards, after a while, where also my sexual expression was transformed in something else, where I don't have this desire for a lot of time afterwards. But then afterwards, today, in these last 10 years, my challenge was to integrate these parts. And therefore, I'm reliving both parts, but with a different balance. And so it could also be like before a new phase. So my answer to your question would be this, but I think the most important answer to your question would be is to see which answer you can give yourself on this question. In fact, it's resounds in me what you're telling me. Because I'm living sexuality in a different way than before. So because you acquired other experiences on a spiritual pathway and you access different parts of yourself, it's like becoming natural to relive in a new form also this part and to embrace it, live it, go through it very, very, very happily. Hmm? The more profound you can do that, giving it a meaning. Bettina, if you could turn on your video, that would be great. And also your mic.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Go.
thank you. You mentioned that one aspect of bringing this feminine quality into life is to establish structures like circle or spiral. That I can really recognize as very important. Now, as I've seen the Damanhurian people for about 20 years, you tried, for example, with the triade, to bring that into reality. I mean, into that part of reality which is received by also people outside. So how do you see the results of this, of your own activities?
Can you say the last sentence again? How do you see the result of this?
Of this medit action, you call it, or for example, the triade action you did some years ago. Was it also to um, to express these feminine qualities, or was it something else? Or yeah, let's say it this way.
So also in Damanhur, Guru says we went through different phases and we're still going through the different phases of transformation. Exactly as every single individual. And we do it as on an individual level, but also as a collectiveness, being a people. And there have been a lot of different phases in Damanhur. And today, really like today, I read synchronically, Buddha says, I read like a talk, an expression of Falco, who was the founder of Damanhur. And he spoke, it was like the conference he gave in the 80s. And he spoke about the feminine as principles, but also as on women as a gender. And he underlined this fundamental part of this epoch, not only in Damanhur, but in general of this epoch of Aquarius. In Damanhur, women and the feminine part always had a fundamental role. And besides the different social roles we take up, which women led inside of Damanhur, step by step in this process, especially in this last phase, in this last, let's say 10, 15 years, I see a lot of change in men and women. So this push to give life to principles, to restructure in a more circle way the Damanhurian society. And from one point of view, from an initiate magical point of view, so from the pathway of meditation, it's a part, but the social part, I find that in this last 10, 15 years, we are doing a lot of steps ahead to structure our society in a way and our relations in a way that we are more collaborative, more circular, to of integrating differences and all these things. This is happening as this happens for every one of us, as also individuals. Also, Damanhur go through different phases, and those phases we go through and how much we can manifest them, they are fruit of the inner work we do, or every single one does. And on a collective level, it's more complex. So that the collective transformation is much more complex, because every single individual lives inside of him or her his individuality, its own knowledge, and so on, and which has to unify, integrate possibly to a process which is done as a collectiveness. So, and that's why to create community is one of the most difficult things on this planet, because this possible harmonious integration among individuals and its own process into a wider process which is collective is very feminine. Very feminine. And I think this can happen in a society which is evolved, but also for us in Damanhur. I think it's a passage. If we manage to do that, we will really make like a jump, like an evolutionary jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. In progress. I don't know if I responded, but it's your questions were articulated.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. So coming back to the androgen, to the union of these two parts inside of every individual, is managing to guide your own energies. When I'm speaking about energy, I'm speaking of guiding your own energy. How does it manifest? It's manifesting through thoughts, emotions, states of consciousness. To manage to do all that is to be so determined in knowing yourself and integrating all our parts without any judgment, to embrace it with love, generative. It's like really this maximum expression of the feminine, sorry, from a certain point of view. And I think it's in the physical gender of the feminine. These characteristics, we got very far away in our society of these characteristics. So, and I think we have to reconquer this part. It's also important for women to generate women. I would like to now suggest a little experience, if you agree with me. I would like to ask you very fast. You look in where you are, you can have a container like a cup or something with ceramics, like a cup or a bowl, and put a little water inside and come back here. For those who want to do that, please go and catch a white bowl or a white cup and put water inside. Ideally without any writing on it or any pattern. So take a cup or a bowl porcelain white with water inside. And I see people coming back. And I would like that you place it in front of you. And it would be ideally if you're somewhere where you're not disturbed by anybody else, and you put this cup in front of you, wherever you are seated, just put it in front of you. And with this practice, I would like to put together a lot of different feminine parts. Water as a container, water as container of information and memories. The feminine, like the cup, like this container, which is white, to receive informations you give to the water. Now, don't you worry, close your eyes. I will guide you. You just follow our voices and start to breathe consciously. And feel your own breathing, which brings you to your body. For being present here and now. And prepare to a journey going inside in your heart, in your feminine wisdom, a journey towards your part, feminine, ancestral part, to this primordial container, this womb, this container of mysteries, intuitions, of knowledge, to this archetype of motherhood and mother. And breathe in silence. And with every breath you take, you go deeper and deeper. And it makes you come back to feel more and more home in this sacred place in your feminine part of your being. And continue through the breathing to access inside of you different levels of profoundness. And then imagine in front of you a staircase, an ancient staircase of stone, a staircase of a temples, lit up by the moonlight. And you start to go down step by step. And while you're taking one stair at a time, repeat, I'm turning back to the mother. I remember, who am I? And slowly you go down and you reach the last 5 stairs But with every step, you repeat, I return to the mother. I remember. Who am I? 4, 3, 2, 1. And now you arrive in a space, in the circular space, silence, sacred, in the heart of the temples, where a circle of women, wise women, are waiting for you. The keepers of the memories, the sacred fire which is transforming, and they are welcoming you. And invite you to sit with them. And one of them gives you a cup of water. Now, slowly, physically, take in hand your water, keeping your eyes closed. With your hands, hold it. And when you feel, you can reopen your eyes and mirror and blow into the water. This ancient memory of your feminine parts connected to the intuition of being container of union, to the integration of differences, and take this bowl, this cup in your hand, and mirror yourself in the water. Look at you. And while blowing into the water, you transmit these characteristics of the feminine, this unconditional love, this co-creation of collaboration. Make it till you feel that you transmitted to the water this information. Continue to observe it, to mirror yourself, and perceive contemporaneously what's happening on a physical level. Which parts of yourself are resounding to that? When you feel that you transmitted this information to the water, and with your when you mirror yourself with your breath, you can put the cup where it was positioned, and you close your eyes and you put your hands, both of them, on your lower belly, on your pelvis, on the womb, this sacred place where you embrace life, you welcome life, which generates, which creates. And now take a deep breath, feeling the frequency of this space. fact of the mystery of life. When you inhale, you receive this frequency, and when you exhale, offer a thought of your feminine wiseness. Inhale and receive the frequency of this creative space. And when you exhale, you offer a thought of gratitude towards the feminine, which is reawakening. Slowly, when you feel ready, I ask you to drink a bit of the water of the cup or the bowl, and in silence to feel and see what's happening. Which message do you receive? Which symbol could come up? Remain in silence with your closed eyes and perceive the message the water brings inside of you. I leave you a minute in silence to perceive. And now bring with you the symbol, the message, the perceptions which you received, and detach from the circle of women. Walk up the staircase of the temples, bringing with you this message. Come back to the surface. And now take a deep, deep breath. Move again your body slowly, little movements, and bring your presence to here and now. And when you feel ready, reopen your eyes. If you would like to, if some of you would like to share a thing of the experience, you're welcome. I hope that you received something precious. It's an exercise which you can, if you want, repeat with even more time and also more intimacy, not with others on Zoom. So at this point, if no one wants to, Gigliola. She says, 3 things I've seen after drinking the water was a circle, and there was like a grill inside. Then it was an insect, huh? You know, this then it was a little serene, so they changed, the 3 things changed the figure. And perception in your body, she says. In your body, what your perception? No big things, Gileola responds. And your state of consciousness, your state of mind, very, very calm. Calmer than before. Then I started. I was also balanced before, so you didn't have a big function. So I had this visualization, she says, of these 3 objects. So it's very important, says Gura. That seems banal, but in fact it is not. To go beyond of the visualization, it's very important in alchemy to concentrate on the perception of your body and what's happening for correspondency. So what's happening there? And only through the differences we feel, we perceive, we can understand whether something is happening and going on. Because if we don't know the changes, we cannot be aware of the process, and the process is not happening if we're not aware of it. So the process of transforming is an awareness of yourself. So thank you, Juliana. Enza, I would like to say more than a visualization, I saw the word creation. Besides, I'm beyond 49 years old. I didn't create bodies, so I'm a bit outside what it's normal to say so of a feminine life. I think she's referring that she didn't become mother. So, and when I put my hands on my lower belly, I felt a lot of warmth. So this word of creation, the feminine is creating anyway, even if it has not created bodies like kids, but we can create like ideas or other things. So I exited of what is the role. And yeah, Gora says you expressed a very, very important concept in our society of today. The women understood of only create a physical life, being mother. Gura also said, I don't have kids and I chose to do so. So the creation is the process of this transmission of knowledge, experience, that's what the feminine always did over the millennium. So also this concept, which is very much, it's a conditioning in our society. Women are not only expressing the feminine through becoming a mother and um reproducing herself, huh? And also, alchemically speaking, it's a process of transformation which happens physically. Yes, it happens when you have a kid, but also, on the other hand, your transmutation of parts of yourself, emotional, physical parts of yourself, um, and this knowledge and applying them. Somebody else? Ever seen another hand? Good, says Gura. For me, it was a big pleasure, and I greet you. I wish you well and explore yourselves with courage, and integrate yourself. The feminine is fundamental for every single individuum, whether you're in a male or in a female body. So thank you very much to everyone, and I'm looking forward to see you again. So to the next time. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for listening in English, and all the best to wherever you are in the world from Damanhur. Convoy.
Convoy.
Thank you, Gura.